Welcome back, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you stories that we think will inspire you in some fashion to consider the possibilities of service above self. Service above self is the motto of Rotary International, 1.2 million members around the world, 36,000 clubs, people who are looking to find cool, innovative, and sustainable ways to improve their communities locally, globally, and digitally. Today, we are going to be getting a presentation from a legend in the service and sustainability sector. Dr. Ernesto Sirolli started just over 50 years ago working to make a difference in the lives of others and learning how to do that well. And if you have seen his TED Talk or read his writing, you will know that we are in for a treat. Ernesto, it is such a pleasure to have you with us. I am honored to pass the mic over to you, and I am excited about your story. Welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley.
Thank you, Rashma. It's fantastic to be invited. I have addressed many Rotary Club meetings in various countries in the world. The last one was in Italy, Northern Italy, but also the Sacramento here in California Rotary Club. I'm Italian, my wife is Australian. We spend time every year between Italy and California, and of course Australia, any time we can travel. So thank you for the invitation. Obviously, you have invited me to talk about this approach to supporting local economic and social development as described in my TED Talk. And in my TED Talk titled, "If you really want to help someone, shut up and listen," I start the talk with a story that has become very sticky. We call them sticky stories here in California and the United States, a story that once you hear it is very difficult to forget. And it's the story of us young Italian international aid workers. I was part of a team that started to teach the Zambian people in a remote village at the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. At the time was still called Rhodesia. We started to teach the local people who were seemed to be completely unaware of agricultural practices. We arrived to teach them horticulture, to think, well, they have fertile soil, they have water, how come they don't grow any veggies? So we arrived, and 5 of us, and we created this wonderful training farm, and we spent millions of dollars. And we taught them to grow tomatoes and zucchinis and lettuce, and we were so proud of ourselves. And we were so, we said we were so superior to the local people. Look, this is you see how simple, you put the seed in the ground. And these tomatoes, these Italian seeds in Zambia, these tomatoes were marvelous, and they grew 4 times the size of the Italian tomatoes that we can grow in Italy. And we were so smug. And look, here it is, we Italians arrive in Africa, and we show. And as soon as the tomatoes were ripe, the hippos came out of the river, the Zambezi River, and they ate all the tomatoes. And we thought, oh my God, the tomatoes, the hippos. And the local people were laughing so hard, they had tears streaming down their faces. The local people have been taking bets between themselves. Would the Italian beat the hippos to the tomatoes, or would the hippos beat the Italian to the tomatoes? They had already known that they could not grow anything there because the hippos eat everything. So we realized that the joke was on us. We were so stupid, so arrogant, that we had arrived in a place and we had not asked the simplest question: how come you don't grow anything here? You have fertile soil, all the water in the world, you have the strongest sun. How come you don't grow things? And we asked the local people, said, did you know about the hippos? And they said, yes, that's why we have no agriculture here. And why didn't you tell us? You never asked. You were giving us money to plant what you wanted. And we think, we said, we're not stupid. You pay us, we do it. So, oh my God, we said, we will never, ever make the same mistake again. And every project was the same mistake. We would arrive uninvited with something that we had conceived in Rome, and we had this fantastic elaborate scheme, and we would go to Africa, and as soon as the money would run out, the local people would go back to do exactly what they were doing before, because what they were doing before was sustainable. We were imposing different system of remuneration, wages, money, a cash economy. We were absolutely creating a false economy all the time. And also we came up with some technology that was, like, oh my God, Johannesburg, World Sustainability Fair in Johannesburg, on the lawn in front of the conference center, there are solar ovens that all of the Italians, the Americans, the Swedes, they are telling the African people to avoid deforestation. Why don't you cook with the sun? And what these solar ovens are, this dish, like a parabolic dish, like an aerial dish, a dish that convey the rays of the sun to a central pot. This black, you put that in the sun, in a few minutes you can cook. And they say, you African people, you should use this solar oven. Why don't you do that? Well, because the majority of the tribes in sub-Saharan Africa, they only cook at night. And if you cook at night, you cannot use the sun. Why do these people cook at night? Because it's hot in Africa. Can you imagine? You are hunting and you're a gatherer and you are in 45 degrees Celsius and you say, oh, I'm hunting for a gazelle. Let me go back to eat in the middle of the day. You are not doing that. It's too hot. You don't use solar oven, at night time. Therefore, it's not an appropriate technology. But so what we do, we create these fantasy solutions because we are not locals. So I went in a profound crisis. From age 21 to age 27, I only saw disasters in Africa. And then initially I thought the disasters were only Italian disasters. But then we saw what the Germans, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Americans were doing. And I realized that, wait a moment. At least we fed the hippos. At least we gave somebody something to eat. The hippos love us. But the other people, you can imagine what the other people have been doing, building HIV clinics in Africa, state-of-the-art, World Health Organization, beautiful, fantastic HIV clinic. And with all the money in the world, with the personnel that come from overseas, they have never linked the HIV internationally funded clinic to the local hospitals. And they never train the local people to man the HIV clinics. So now they have an international disaster. Because as soon as the funding runs out, they have not incorporated the HIV clinic to the local health system. We continue to do this absolutely idiotic arrogant, culturally hegemonic. And for the students here, find what the word hegemonic means. H-E-M-O-N-I-G-I, hegemonic. Find out what the word means, because that's what we are doing, is cultural hegemony. We believe that our culture is better than anybody else's culture. And if you believe that, you are going to make mistake after mistake after mistake. So shut up and listen. What is shut up and listen? Shut up and listen is a very, very, very simple fundamental concept. There is no geography to intelligence and passion. Don't you ever, ever confuse intelligence for education. All our ancestors were not formally educated. They were so intelligent that they've taken humanity where we are. Education on top of intelligence is phenomenal. But intelligence exists in every African village, in every Asian village. Intelligence that is drop-dead beautiful intelligence. Marvelous. For me, for the last 50 years, I have been given magic glasses because I only see beauty everywhere I go. We work in 22 different countries in the world, 400 communities. And each community is, for us, is like a chocolate box full of delightful differences. We are in awe of the people we meet. In awe. But when you arrive, what happens now with our culture, we only have the helicopter view. The helicopter view is that we hover above the community, and from high up, when we look down, we only see poverty and squalor. We see roads which are not sealed. We see poverty. And so from the high of the helicopter, we say, oh, poor people, they need food, they need water, they need solar ovens, they need tomatoes. Because we think that from the helicopter, we look down, we only see misery. And what I say to people is, land the helicopter, land it. Land the helicopter stops. And from those poor people houses, people come out. And the Señora Maria in Guatemala who says, come to my house. And you sit at the kitchen table, Señora Maria, she makes you coffee. Or you are in Mongolia in a yurt and they make you tea with camel milk and you are with them. And they said to you, what are you doing here? And they said, well, we listen and we help people do beautifully what they love to do all over the world. We simply help people transform their ideas into a better life. And the people say, oh, my son has a dream. So Senora Maria from Guatemala called the son, and the son comes in and he said, you know, what I want to do, I want to, of all the cafeteros that produce coffee here, there are some who produce organic coffee, and we would like to export organic coffee to Europe. And you know somebody? Of course I can help you. And all of a sudden, what was so, when you saw the community from above, was squalor and misery. When you are in the kitchen of Signora Maria and she starts to talk, and the son, the daughter, the friends come to talk to you, you discover that you are in your own village. You are in your own community. These people are identical to the people around you at home. Same dreams. People are people. They all have a dream. The dream is to have a little bit of financial security, to have a roof over their heads, and to know that tomorrow they will be able to eat. So materialistic needs, eat, drink, sleep, a shelter, and tomorrow the safety of knowing that tomorrow you will have the same. As soon as people have a little bit, they start to dream. They want to be loved, to be respected. And so what happened is that it's universal. At the moment you have this kind of magic glasses, people are like you. These are your brothers. All of a sudden, this magic world opens up. And people start to tell you what they have in their hearts and their minds, because that's the secret. They don't tell anybody because they're scared to be ridiculed, and they're scared that people will steal the idea. So the key for our work as enterprise facilitators in these communities is to offer free and confidential conversations. Is the confidentiality the key? Because then people come and say, listen, I told my parents, and my parents said, don't be stupid, you can't do that. We don't do this in our community. It is the role that once had the priest in those communities, somebody that you could go and speak confidentially, the doctor in the village. My father was a village doctor. My grandfather was a village doctor, physician. And people would come and talk to the doctor with the excuse of their headache, but they wanted to talk to somebody in confidence about their real problems, their real dreams, their real concerns. So what we have done, we have invented the family doctor of business. The family doctor of business is, we call it enterprise facilitator. And what we do, if a village says, if a government, we have worked with governments, federal government, local governments all over the world, but also for corporations, for churches all over the world to say, can you help my community to do better financially? Can you help teach entrepreneurship? Say, yeah, of course we can. So what we do, we go to the community and we create a tiny little committee there, like a tiny little Rotary club there. And we say, help us to find the person that we can train to become the local enterprise facilitator. So we have enterprise facilitators all over the world. In some African countries, their salary is $300 a month, which is the biggest salary in that town. And so we have enterprise facilitators who have created over the last 10 years, something like 600 new businesses in a community that employ thousands of people without ever giving people money. You just ask them, what is your dream? And then you say, what can you do in your dream? 3 things have to be done beautifully. The product has to be beautiful, marketing has to be beautiful, financial management has to be fantastic. Which one of these 3 can you do? And people say, I fish tuna, so I can produce the tuna. Say, okay, do you know somebody who can take the tuna to the supermarkets for sushi, sashimi? Do you know somebody who can go to Japan and introduce your tuna from Australia to the Japanese sushi market? And they said, no, we never met such a person. Would you like me to find you one? Yes, please. So I make 5 telephone calls. I found somebody who's a marketer who goes, speaks to this fisherman. And the guy says, well, I have another 4 fishermen. They're all like me. They have no market. Can we work together? So they give this one person 120 tons of best tuna in the world. He takes it to Tokyo. And one of my first projects in Australia, these 5 fishermen went from 60 cents per kilo to $15 per kilo in 9 months, because now they had a marketer. The wife of one of the fishermen was a banker. She was working in the bank. She joined the company to do the finance, product, marketing, finance. So product, marketing, finance is what we teach all over the world. As soon as you have a market, you don't need money, because now you have a client. If you have a client, everybody wants to give you money to fulfill the order. If you have a client, the lesson from Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs went to sell something and he did not have the money to build it. Show a computer board to a shop owner and he says, yes, I want 20 of those. He didn't have the money to build them, but he had an order for 20, so he got the money easily to build 20 computer boards. So marketing is the essential part of business, and we teach this to everybody. And financial management is to be exquisite. So I want to finish by saying my life has been transformed by understanding the concept of humanistic psychology. We are all, as a species, we all have dreams. The dreams are universal. If you offer a sincere, uninterested support, which is confidential, you are going to have people telling them your dream. As soon as you have the knowledge of the dream, you are 50% there, capable of helping them fulfill them. Business is not one solitary person. Business is three people working together, like in the best tradition of Silicon Valley. All the great companies of Silicon Company were set up by 2, 3, 4 people. And there were 2 friends, 2 colleagues, 2 partners, husband and wife. There were 4 colleagues who had worked together somewhere else. So it's not a secret, and we can democratize entrepreneurial know-how if we want to do so, if we want to create prosperities in communities. So I don't know for how long I've spoken, but I stop now. you see my passion. I can talk forever, but Rushton, there is plenty of, I've given 7 TED Talks, and there's plenty of documentation. If people are interested, there are a couple of books that I've written. It's been an absolute delight to speak to you and it's been delightful to be invited. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure, for sure. I'm going to introduce the group that we've got here, and then we'll launch into the questions. Those of you who have questions in your head and you're forming them, excellent. Just let me know in the chat if you would, and that way I can recognize you as a part of our process. So joining us from Maryland, we have Melanie Zate. Melanie, so good to have you with us here as well. I believe John Tra is also with us, although camera's off. John, good to have you. From Oregon, we have Heather. From our club, we have in British Columbia, Nick Lagarde. We have here in California, Cecilia and Chris. And then representing the fine school that is Junipero Serra High School, we have Diego, Lucas, and Balio. It is good to have all of you with us. Martha, what a pleasure to have you join us as well as Ernesto's partner in life. So what we will do is we will jump in. I'll have Heather ask the first question, and then we will jump to the next one after that. So Heather, go ahead and unmute and ask away.
Thank you, Rushton. Thank you, Dr. Sirolli, for being here with us. I have a question about perhaps some language advice. An example I'd like to share is that a migrant community we work with, we had a very generous donor who really wanted to contribute a butterfly house to a migrant camp because he thought that would be a marvelous learning experience for young people. And we knew that in a migrant camp with a lot of cement and corrugated tin, that butterfly house is going to get dismantled for parts because people need that to hold up tarps or whatever. And it wasn't the highest and best use of time. Because this was 2 years ago, I was able to say, oh, thank you so much. That's such a generous idea. With COVID, I don't know that we're able to do that right now, but we can circle back to that later. When COVID is over, might you have any advice about how we can, when we don't have COVID as an excuse to say that's not a viable idea, how do we redirect people's good intentions?
Heather, is a real tough one because now you don't want to offend the donor. I think that it will be really, really wise for you to establish a vision for your organization that embraced this respectful listening of the need of the local people a priori. So you tell all the donors that if they want to, that you only work in response to needs, and that before you take anything into a community, you do it only if there has been community consultation. And so they will avoid you to offend one individual person, because you say, we cannot, because we are going to betray our own approach. The approach is always responsive. So we cannot. It's like somebody saying to me, Ernesto, we would like you to work in East LA. And I said, I only work where invited. See, you cannot use me as a political instrument. You would like to alleviate the problem of the African American. So you are going to say to me, I pay you to go there and fix it. I said, what do you mean? If you want me to work in LA, I will do a public meeting. I describe, open to the population, I do a town hall meeting. I describe what I do. And then I said, do you people of East LA want me? Raise your hand. And if people say, go away, I say, you know, I am notorious for saying, see this face? I make you a promise. You will never, ever see me here again unless you invite me. So what you have to say, you should have a blanket policy that say Rotary Club accept gratefully all presents that are useful to fulfill a need of a community. So we have requests galore of what they need. Nobody's asked us for a butterfly enclosure. But wait a moment, if you really would like to, donate a butterfly enclosure, we are going to find somebody who wants it. But could be a primary school, it could be a old people home around the corner from your house. So don't feel that you're trapped because now you say, oh, you know, it's donating, and what are we going to say? You should have an umbrella policy that say you never arrive uninvited. And there is a very, very big difference between acute and chronic problem. Acute, there is a tsunami, you arrive. And the people there will be grateful because they have no shelter, no food, no clear water. So, and this is what Médecins Sans Frontières does, you know, they arrive where there is a catastrophe and everybody's grateful. So that's acute intervention. But chronic problem like, you know, poverty, generational poverty, racism, those are not acute. You cannot arrive uninvited to say we are first respondent. What do you mean first respondent? We have a problem that is 200 years old. So what I think that you can justify that, okay, if you have tents, clean water, medicine, vaccine, you absolutely arrive uninvited and you say here. And even in that case, however, you have to respect local norms, okay? You arrive uninvited, but in respect of the local culture. But be careful when you believe that because you mean well, they should be grateful to you. Is the famous, I mean, I know stories about these unintended consequences of generosity. I have stories that will get your hair standing up. The ambassador, I can not tell you the country, ambassador and his wife, they go and visit a village and they have a reception in the middle of the square and they are absolutely honored and everybody's happy. And the chief, the wife of the chief, all the people dressed very nicely, they receive the ambassador and the wife. And then the ambassador and the wife, they are walking towards their car through the village streets. And the wife of the ambassador sees this woman sitting outside the house, pretty squalid. She's dressed poorly. and she takes money out of her purse and she gives it to that woman. Was a disaster because that woman was the local prostitute and was the only woman who had been given money by the wife of the ambassador. And the local people did not understand why the only person who has been given a gift was the local prostitute. They never recover from that. That ambassador and his wife, they are never going to be invited in the village again. You don't know what you do. You don't know what you don't know. So be careful, because doing social economic development in a different culture is like trying to back a truck with two trailers. The smallest deviation at the top will create a consequence that you have absolutely no idea about. So it's delicate stuff. That's why we don't even go to some African communities. I refuse to go personally to a community in the Congo. We train a facilitator who is our best African facilitator, has become a master trainer. He has trained 3 more people in the Republic of the Congo. I refuse to go there because I was told that if you are a white person, you show in that village, when you walk the village, you are followed by 80 to 100 beggars every day. Because white now has been identified with money. So I refuse to go. I don't want to be a white savior, and I don't want to be identified with somebody who treating everybody as a beggar. Who the hell are we? Who the hell are we? That everybody is there, begging money because we have, $1. So no. So we trained the enterprise facilitator, the church, the Methodist Church sent 3 people. We had a course here in America. We picked an enterprise facilitator. We sent it back. I had never been there, and it's the most successful African project. And our enterprise facilitator is a local, speaks English, French, and 4 of the local languages. Perfect.
Wonderful. I'd like to get a few questions from our guest, Melanie, and our students as well. So Melanie mentions that she has done quite a bit of work in the Congo. She's thinking about this very same issue of what kind of tips and advice for working with people who are different, who look different from you. If your goal is to help, you just described connecting with someone there and making that person, kind of your person on the ground who is able to connect in ways that don't carry the baggage. What other pieces of advice do you have for people looking to be helpful in other settings?
First of all, I think to understand my ease in speaking to people from other races and cultures, you have to know a little bit about my personal life. When I was 9 years old, I was taken by my father, who was he became the director of the Department of Radiology. He became a specialist of radiologist, and he created a very modern Department of Radiology for the hospital in Benghazi, Libya. So I was in Libya before Gaddafi, before the very, very big problems of the country. And for 3 years, I went to a Catholic school, boys only, if you know, like you were telling me, Rashton, a boys only. But this school, even though it was of Italian tradition, had people from many, many races. So in my classrooms, I had, since oil had been discovered, so there were the American companies there, the British company, the French companies, in that I had a very multicultural class. American, English, French. There were Greeks, there were Saudi, there were Maltese, there were Armenians, there were Libyans, there were Turks. But my best two friends, one was a Palestinian, and the other one was a Jewish friend. And the two never spoke to each other. But the three of us were inseparable. We had 3 bicycles. And the Jewish kid would say to me, let's go to the movies. And I will tell the Palestinian, the Muslim kid, let's go to the movie. We were inseparable. I grew up in cultural diversity. And I was invited in the Jewish house by the parents who loved me. The Muslim parents loved me. I was in the middle of this incredible, and I did not even understand why they did not speak to each other. Didn't matter. They loved each other. They were just prohibited from talking to each other, but they loved each other. Husni Ben Husni was a black Libyan, was a Numidian. But I only realized that he was black when I saw a photo 10 years later. I never realized that Husni was actually black. It was my friend Husni. Kids are colorblind. It's my friend. So what I want to say is that is putting me in a position where when I in Honduras or in Nepal, in the mountains of Nepal, speaking to people, for me, I am trying to, the only thing that is of interest to me is, how can I help this beautiful person? I don't, so if you could get that, and I think that one of the most important things is to travel, to get these kids to travel, to experience, to see that, no, it's not that because they here in America, that they nice. No, they're nice in their own country as well. These people are absolutely magnificent. But you have to be understanding one thing. You always find what you're looking for. If you arrive in a community looking for criminality, drug use, alcohol, violence, you are going to find that. Be careful. It's not that, it's not about being naive to say everybody in the world is beautiful. It's that you arrive looking for beauty, you're going to find beauty. You are there looking for criminality, you're going to find it. So be careful what you set up to look for, because you're going to find it. So if you go to a community looking for the smartest, the most beautiful people who have a passion to do something to improve their families, improve their own lives, you're going to find them. We only work with those people, and they come to us with the dream. So I think that, you have to understand, you're going to find anything in the world. It depends on you. And for those who understand a little bit about quantum physics, what they say is that the observer determines the outcomes of the experiment. If the observer is looking for a wave, he will find a wave. If the observer is looking for a particle, he will see a particle. So the observer is very important. I want you to become observers of beauty.
Wonderful. Let's do one more question. You talked a little bit about what it meant to grow up in a very different setting, but you also mentioned a little earlier that your father was the town doctor. Your grandfather had been the town doctor. And one of my students, Barrio, asks, how did you not follow in your father and your grandfather's footsteps? How did you end up, kind of on your own path?
By the time my father became a specialist, he had left the village, had gone to Rome, set up his own clinic, then started to work in big hospitals. And my father missed terribly being a family doctor. But the profession of family doctor was on their way out. The family doctors, my father and my grandfather, they were what is called the heroic doctors. They were the only person who could save your life in a village where you could not send somebody to a hospital that was not there. So my grandfather was a surgeon in the first war in the trenches. If you read my grandfather's war diary, it's scary what those doctors did in the most horrendous, and they had to save the people's life. My father, my father graduated from Rotary University when he was 24 with the highest marks. He came to a village of 3,000 people in post-war Italy, and he would be called in the middle of the night on horseback. He would go to a farmhouse, and when he would come into the room, he would look at the horror scene with women after 2 days of labor, nearly dead, and my father had to do things that a 24-year-old today will say, "Are you kidding me? What? Call the ambulance, call the helicopter ambulance." My father had to fix it because there was nobody else. So the kind of medicine that I grew up, the stories I grew up with, they don't exist anymore. And my father says now a GP sends you to a specialist, will not even assume responsibility to touch you anymore. How long since you've gone to a general practitioner who has actually done a full physical on you? They don't do that anymore. They do it in developing countries, they do it in places where they are still, but in the Western world, the doctor now is a super specialist. The GP, the general practitioner, the family doctor, is basically non-existent anymore. You go to a clinic, they send you to a specialist. Nobody assumes responsibility until the very, very last super specialist who will then intervene and operate on you. But the family doctor doesn't even touch you anymore. So no, my father had no regrets. And then I found myself that I want to heal people myself. So I studied psychology instead. I never studied business, psychology. So I'm still a healer, but of healthy people. They need healing. Also, the healthy people, I guarantee you, there are lots of healthy people who are completely lost.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we'll wind things down. And then after we finish the recording, to whatever extent Ernesto's time allows, we'll continue the discussion. But for all of you who have joined us and watched this today, I hope that you've been inspired by some of the stories and some of the possibilities that Ernesto has shared. I hope you have found lots of interesting things in the meeting as well. The pieces of our meeting that are gathered each week for our members and guests. A little farther down the page, you'll find the attendance form. Please let us know you were here by typing in your email address properly. You'll be able to get an automated reply that you can pass along to your club secretary for a miss in your Rotary Club. And at the bottom of the page, you'll find our discuss section, DISQUS. Leave your comments about the program, about other elements of the meeting. We would love to have you share your thoughts and reply to those of others. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. So Ernesto, thank you again for being with us. And if you have a final thought for the group, now is a wonderful time.
Well, I think that the most important thing that I would like to leave you with is you look for beauty, you find beauty. And I would like to leave you, instead of telling you another, word, I would like to leave you with this mental image. Imagine the biggest conference in the world about city planners. And the conference was held in Cape Town when I was there visiting, maybe in, I don't remember whether it was 2005. And so there are the people who are designing cities And they are building these fantastic conference centers. They are building the bridges. So they came to Cape Town, and they had to, they had all the speeches prepared. And when they came to Cape Town, they went to see Soweto. They went to see what had been the poorest ghetto in South Africa. And they came back completely transformed by the experience. They had slides, pictures of the creation of this transformational Soweto in this magnificent, place of activity, entrepreneurship, cafes, color, graffitis, murals. The local people, as soon as the lead of oppression had been removed, had this creativity had exploded, and all of a sudden, all these great architects and planners were blown away by spontaneous combustion, by what happens when you remove the lead. There is no country, there is no continent in the world that comes close to what's happening in Africa in terms of entrepreneurship. Nobody can imagine what's happening there. 1.2 billion people, 70% under the age of 30, with all the natural resources in the world, with everything they want. And now the oppression is going to lift. What's going to happen there? So I am absolutely, I'm telling Rotary International, you want to do something? Oh my God. You want to wake up, instead of the Asian dragon, do you want to wake up the African lion? Why don't you do that? In Rotary International, why don't you employ 1,000 enterprise facilitators in Africa? Then you're going to see something that the world has not seen as yet. So just few thoughts for you.
Such an honor, Ernesto. Thank you again. And for all of you, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.